Assalamu alaikum. My name is Elizabeth Miller and I am the founder of Soulistic Nutrition. I am a integrative nutrition health coach and I work with women in my local community to nourish ourselves whole. I believe in the interrelatedness of the health of the earth and the health of humanity, and so I will be touching on that point today. I do just want to thank the Chicago Muslims Green Team for having me today and taking part of this initiative. So inshallah khair. So a little bit about me. I grew up in New York and I always loved travel, culture, and food. That's always been a big part of my life. And then in grad school, when I was getting my master's in sociology, kind of had this breakdown where I knew that there was something more out there, and I was really struggling mentally and felt really disconnected from myself. So long story short, I ended up turning to nature as part of my healing, and I started volunteering on farms, and I woofed up in the Adirondacks, and then I started volunteering on local farms. Around this time, I also accepted Islam, and the two went hand in hand for me because there's so much wisdom in both. So I want to talk more about this disconnection from nature that I felt, and I know a lot of humanity feels right now, especially here in the States. So when we are disconnected from nature, I believe that we are disconnected from ourselves. Not knowing how to survive in the elements, or really how to understand nature or the world that we come from, can create anxiety and ungroundedness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that we are literally made from clay and from water. And so many of us don't have a relationship with dirt. We don't put our hands in the soil. We don't understand where we come from. We don't respect water. We don't reflect on it and the amazing lessons it has for us. So there's a huge disconnect there. We're cut off from our primal source of nourishment and wisdom that nature holds. It tells us how to live and how to thrive in the world that we are in today. And I think that right now we falsely believe that as long as we don't see the impact of our systems, we won't ever have to suffer the consequences of our actions. But I think that's slowly changing as we see the consequences of climate change and these big industries kind of collapse on themselves. So the health of planet Earth literally correlates to our health as human beings. So an example I like to use is the health of our soils. So here in the United States, we have a large monocrop industry where things like soybeans, corn, and wheat are grown in a monocrop system. So what this means is that these crops are grown year after year on these huge plots of land and never rotated. They are not given companion plants. They are not given anything natural. That bees are literally brought in to forage these fields and to pollinate, but they have to be brought in because it's not a natural environment. And the soil itself is treated with pesticides and with fertilizers, because when you grow one crop on its own, it's unnatural. That's not how things are. And so year after year, the soil gets depleted because the same crop is growing there. And when you grow plants, you know that some of them fix the soil with nutrients and others take and take and take. And so you need to have a variety of plants in order to have a healthy soil environment. So when we consume these products, we might have a big yield of corn and soybeans and wheat, but they are nutritionally deprived compared to those grown in organic, healthy soil. They may not have the amount of micronutrients available in organic produce. And we can see this unhealthy terrain impacting the internal terrains of human beings. So in the United States, a lot of our chronic illnesses are inflammatory diseases. They are lifestyle diseases. They are nutritional issues and issues within the metabolism. And a lot of this goes back into our gut and our own microbiome that correlates with the soil of the earth. When our soil isn't healthy, our systems aren't going to be healthy because it all works holistically. Another example that I like to use is about the animal industry, the meat industry. In this country, animals are regarded as a product, and they don't really have many rights. So in commercial lots, animals are caged from the time that they are born. Many are taken from their parents immediately. And they don't know what it's like to be a healthy, thriving animal. They're just there to produce meat, and that's it. So we see issues within the animals such as cancer, tumors, pus, and just unhealthiness because they're not able to move. They're not able to go out and forage. They're being fed an unnatural diet to fatten them up as quickly as possible because it's all about money. And so when we consume these products, we're consuming that fear, that lethargy, that constriction that this animal has faced its entire life. We're also consuming the food that it consumed, which is highly inflammatory in a lot of cases. We're also consuming any of the diseases that it might have had because the inspections that happen, if you've seen any investigations into the meat industry, aren't very good. There tends to be a lot of bad quality meat out there. And so if you are only able to get this kind of meat, you unfortunately are consuming all of that from the animal. And so we can see this correlate with our health again, with our lifestyle issues, with the amount of antibiotics that are used in these animals because they are cut off from nature and they have all these diseases. We are taking in those antibiotics, which again is slamming our systems and taking away our healthy immune system and our healthy terrains. So it goes hand in hand. When we cut off our plants, our animals, and ourselves from nature, we're now seeing the consequences in our health and in our mental health. So as a health coach, part of my work is educational. And so I do work with my clients to understand, the reality of the situation of the food industry. But another part is holding space because these are very unpleasant truths. And unfortunately, unless you are very privileged, it's hard to escape these realities because the food that is available in a lot of communities, especially communities that are lower income, are lower quality ingredients. But there are things that we can do to reconnect ourselves with nature little by little. And just setting that intention for ourselves can make the biggest difference. Once our eyes are open, we can learn how to navigate within this reality instead of having our blinders up and pretending that everything's okay and everything is, great. Once we're like, okay, this is a really crappy situation. How can we navigate it now? How can I take care of my body in this system? And so that's a big part of my work for both myself as a human being is navigating this, also helping my clients as well. When we're having ongoing health issues, when we're not sure what to feed our families, it can be so confusing. But that intention, that niyyah, is the first step. And something I'll just throw in here that I like to share is that gratitude and Allah's food are a really simple way to go about navigating this climate with the food industry because, there is no perfect food really in today's world. But when we can get to as close to nature as we can with our fruits and vegetables, with our grains, with pastured raised animals that were halal slaughtered. That is what Allah prescribes for us. And even if we can access this high quality, having gratitude changes everything. Having the intention to live within this balance changes everything. Two last points before I wrap up. So another goal of Soulistic nutrition is making this access to healthcare accessible for everybody. I don't believe that people of privilege should be the only ones with accessibility to good health and good holistic lifestyles. And so that is something that I want to put out into the world, that we can take care of each other. There are community initiatives that we can do, such as this, to help us raise awareness and come together and take care of each other, because that's the whole point of our lives, right? Is to do good work and work together and grow and to do the best that we can, inshallah. So since this video is coming out during Ramadan and most of us will still be in quarantine and isolation, this is a great time for us to reconnect with ourselves, with God, and with nature. So I have 4 ideas that you might be able to implement, and 5 if you count the idea of gratitude and having tayyib food. So the first one is taking care of a plant. So if you don't have access to the outside world, if you live in a small apartment, this is accessible. You can just get a tiny plant, water it daily or however often it needs, and reflect on the verses of the Quran about how Allah brings life and gives death and how He causes the plants to grow. Another idea is increasing your fruit and vegetable intake. So this kind of goes back to the other point that I just made, but filling your plate with the things that grow in nature help you connect with nature. Minimizing your waste by using food scraps. Again, so one idea is like making broth from your scraps, or finding different ways to use it in food. If you use a juicer, using that pulp to make baked goods, composting whatever can't be reused, or eating leftovers. If you're not used to eating leftovers and you usually throw out your food, make the intention to be more mindful and to use less food waste, or make less food waste, excuse me. My last idea is going for a walk in nature, if that is accessible to you. So whether it's at a local park, if you have access to the outdoors, going for a walk and reflecting on the wind that hits your face, if it's raining, if there are clouds in the sky, just really thinking about what is around you, even if you're not, in an isolated place in the woods. All of this is still nature. Putting your hands in dirt, if you can find it, just reconnect and reflect. I remember when I was learning about Islam, there was a point when somebody pointed out to me, we were driving to New York City, and I saw the skyline, and I was like, oh my God, the skyline's so beautiful. And they were like, yeah, but what about the clouds behind them? Don't you see how gorgeous they are? And I just have this distinct memory of being like, oh my God, I was so blind before that moment, because I was so in awe of man's ability, but I was so cut off from God and my Creator that I had disregarded these things for so long. And I never really took the time while I was maturing to reflect on these things. I had become disconnected from nature and myself. And I just remember that moment being an aha moment. It sounds so silly, but for me, I was just like, wow, yeah. I was just like blown away. And since then, I've been looking at the clouds and everything around me just so differently with new eyes. So if you'd like to connect with me, I'm available at soulisticnutrition.com. That's SOULISTIC nutrition.com. Or you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, And I do have a YouTube channel with like one video on it. So if you want to connect, reach out. I do one-on-one coaching. I do things like this. I love community initiatives. So yeah, happy Ramadan. I pray that this is a beneficial time for all of us. May Allah forgive me if I said anything wrong today. And I pray that this was a benefit to you. And these are all reminders to myself as well. So be well and take care. Assalamu alaikum.